Harrison Ford bursts onto Jimmy Kimmel's stage, but a fiery fight for the soul of Hollywood ensues and the icon exits. What sparked this incandescent skirmish? Let's break it down. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from. Let's see if anyone's here for this battleground show. The studio for Jimmy Kimmel. Live in Los Angeles approaches electrification. Lights sharp crowd. A buzz with anticipation. Harrison Ford, the grizzled star of 1,000's adventures, is the night's headliner, his weathered charisma filling the room. He's here to sell his new movie, a gritty sci-fi saga about a rogue pilot fighting a corporate-controlled galaxy. A story based on his convinced of it, raw, honest storytelling. Ford's no stranger to talk shows, but he's got little patience with their glitz. The canned laughter, the sensationalist traps. He's here for the work, and any distraction takes risk to his temper. Backstage, the atmosphere already strained. Ford's manager, Ellen Tough. No frills pro admonished the producers. Keep it straightforward, no gimmicks. She feels Ford's no-nonsense spirit, how he bristles against insincerity. And her expectations are non-negotiable. The producers agree, but their eyes glint with plans for a viral spot, something to cash in on Ford's action hero image. They think his gruff suave will suffice. Ellen's not fooled, her glare, icy cold, as she looks at them in hushed tone. They're prodding the bear, she reminds to one stagehand, who shrugs out of it. In the green room, Ford's drinking coffee, looking at a screen as Jimmy Kimmel hosts the show. Jimmy's in his groove, his monologue cutting through tabloid drivel. The audience laughing. Ford's face is empty, his fingers drumming the table. A sign Ellen knows he's tense. The stage manager gives the cue. It's time, and Ford gets up, smooths his jacket, and dashes for the curtain. No entourage, just one man prepared to face the glare of the lights. Out on stage, Jimmy's doing a little about a Hollywood feud, the audience in stitches on beat. He turns to Ford's introduction, his voice relaxed. The one and only Harrison Ford. The band plays a gritty riff. The crowd springs to life, and Ford steps out his step, steady, a half smile that won't cross his eyes. He shakes hands with Jimmy, firm, brief, and keeps his stance relaxed but tense. The applause ceases and the room tightens. Everyone's gaze on the two men beneath the lights. Jimmy starts probing slowly about the film, its themes of rebellion and truth. Ford hunches forward. Voice rough, sincere. Speaking of the pilot's struggle, the need for stories, cutting corporate clutter. The crowd's with him nodding, swept up by his fervor. But Jimmy's got a show to put on, and he's striving for a lighter vibe. He lobs a tongue-in-cheek aside about Ford's action hero work, wondering if he still gets to fly the Millennium Falcon. Ford's smile is narrow. His answer, gruff. I'm past that. The audience laughs, but there's an edge of a razor in his voice. A reminder Jimmy misses. Seizing an opportunity to play Jimmy comes out with mentioning a story about Ford, supposedly improvising some insane stunt going for laughs. Ford's expression stiffens his jaw. Tight clench didn't happen, he says, his voice level. Final. The audience settles several gasps. Some tense laughter. Jimmy smirks, thinking he can talk his way out of it, and reaches for a prop, a toy blaster, holding it aloft with a wink. Come on, Han Solo. One shot for the audience's benefit. The audience applauds, buying the joke, but Ford won't be swayed. His glare could stop a stampede. Put that trash away, he growls low sharp. The studio falls silent, Jimmy's grin faltering. Ellen in the wings shakes her head, muttering, "Here it goes, this is about to ignite." The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio falls silent. Harrison Ford's command, "Put that crap away," cutting through the air like a whip. Jimmy Kimmel, holding the toy blaster, tries to laugh it off, his chuckle thin, uneasy. "All right, no blasters tonight," he says, putting it on the desk. But the crowds tense their earlier cheers now. A nervous hum, Ford's eyes remain fixed on Jimmy, his anger snapping. A man fed up with insincerity. Backstage, Ellen's fists are clenched. Her stage manager whisper biting. "I told them to keep it real." The stage manager, flustered, points the control booth to cue up a commercial. But the director's delaying ratings, shooting through the roof with each passing second of Ford's insurrection. Jimmy, sensing the mood, bitter shifts in his seat, trying to swing back to the interview. Let's get back to the movie. He insists, his voice forcing calm, hoped to diffuse. He questions the sci-fi pilot's motives in an attempt to pry into Ford's passion for sharing true stories. Ford answers, his voice, gruff, level, descending into the battle of the character against corporate domination. The need for truth in a sanitized world. But he pauses, leaning in, his voice becoming harder. "That's what this is about," he declares, frowning at Jimmy. Not your cheap stunts for clicks, the slur cuts, and the crowd reacts. Some clapping, others gasping, the room splitting into camps. Jimmy's smile tightens his fingers, tapping a cue card. He's dealt with tough customers, but Ford's blunt anger is tearing his show apart. He tries to shift it around, asking about the special effects of the film, but Ford's not having it. You're not listening. He cuts Jimmy off, his voice rising slightly. I came here to talk about something that matters, not to be your prop for laughs. The audience barks some applause. Go Harrison! While others boo, thinking it's an act, Jimmy glances at floor producer, who's gesturing him on. But Ford's voice gets sharper, his annoyance clear. This whole rig, he says, indicating the set, the lights, it's a dodge, a way to escape what's real. The crowd noise mounts, riding off Ford's anger. Jimmy Throne tries to lean into his charm, smiling. Hey Harrison, we're just having fun. No offense meant, he says, but the words ring hollow and the audience feels it. Ford shakes his head, slow, deliberate. Funny, he talks, his voice laden with disdain. You really believe that humans care about this puff? They crave stories that have stuff. Some of the audience stand applauding while others jeer. The studio crackle with tension. Ellen in the wings whispers. They're in over their heads. The security detail, 2 men in dark suits, edge nearer to the stage, but they're covert, aware Ford's gravitas. In the background, the producers are raving voices shouting over in the control booth. The director's frazzled. The numbers are rising. Maybe, but this is getting out of hand. Let it ride, but stand prepared to cut. He growls. Jimmy, still on stage, attempts to regain control, inquiring if Ford's co-stars are free, hoping respect will work its magic. But Ford's had done with the script. You don't understand, he says, his voice firm-pointed. You think you can spin this into a gag? I'm not here for your sensationalist trash. The crowd are on their feet, some chanting his name, others calling out for Jimmy to stand up. Jimmy's mask collapses, his eyes squinting. He leans forward, dropping the nice guy act. Look, Harrison, we invited you here to share your film, he says, his voice slicing. Maybe show a bit of gratitude for that. That's the spark. Ford's eyes flash. His jaw clenched. Gratitude, he says, his voice low-cutting, for making my job a circus. The audience goes wild, the noise shaking the set. Some standing, filming, others screaming. Jimmy's face wreens, his hands gripping the desk. The floor producer calls for a break, but the cameras keep rolling. The moment too big to interrupt, Jimmy stands, trying to take charge. All right, we'll take a fast break, people, he says with a strained laugh. The band starts, but Ford's, not turning his eyes, persistent, and the crowd's buzzing. Senses this fight far from over. The Jimmy Kimmel live stage is a storm, the band's frantic melody crashing against the crowd's wild cheers, boo, and shouts of Harrison Ford's name. As Jimmy Kimmel asks for a commercial break, Jimmy waves, stands to the crowd. His smile strained, trying to wave control, but his eyes flash to the floor producer, who's wildly waving to cut. The cameras, however, keep rolling. The booth director, Ford, addicted to high ratings, haven't looked away, transfixed on Jimmy. His rage at phony storytelling, a dynamic presence backstage. Ellen's gazing accusingly at the producers, her voice low, threatening. You pushed him too far. Security guards lurking in the wings. Inches from the stage, moves nervously, waiting for a cue. As the music fades away, Jimmy's sitting slumped over towards Ford, his voice low off the mic, but the front row catches shreds. Let's just do this straight, Harrison, he says. A combination of plea and irritation. Ford's response barely audible. You've crossed the line. The humming of the crowd. Phones up, recording. The instant already going viral. Jimmy reading the room slip, trying to galvanize the crowd, lifting his hands. Folks, we've got Harrison Ford. Let's give some love. The clapping is skewed, overwhelmed by shouts. Some for Ford, some for Jimmy to push back. The room's a powder keg, and Ford's take a stand on authenticity is the fire. Ford leans back, arms folded, his face unyielding. He's not here for accolades. He's here to take a stand for truthful storytelling. The stage manager, perspiring, cues Jimmy to wrap it up, but Jimmy's not releasing. He picks up a cue card, asking about the director of the movie, trying to navigate to neutral ground. Ford cuts him off, his voice gravelly cutting. You're still not listening, he states loud enough for the mics. I came to talk of something real, not to subsidize your sensationalist game. The audience erupts, some cheering, standing, others booing. The gulf wide, Jimmy's jaw clenches, his normal charm cracking under Ford's relentless pressure. The host tries to laugh, but it's strained. Harrison, it's just a show, he says, sweeping his hand over the set. We're here to entertain. Ford's eyes narrow, his voice falling, deliberate. Entertain. You're burying truth under your cheap hype. The words strike home and the audience responds. Some shouting encourage others, heckling. The din overwhelming Ellen in the wings nods grimly, aware Ford's not backing down. The security men move in closer, their presence denser, but they're careful, conscious of Ford's legendary weight. Backstage, the producers are in an uproar, voices blending in the control booth. The director's torn the numbers are huge, but this is falling apart. Keep it going, but ready to cut. He yaps. Jimmy on stage makes one final attempt to guide things, asking about Ford's preparation for his role. His tone almost desperate. But Ford's tired of the farce. "You're wasting my time," he pronounces, his voice a knife. "This isn't about the film anymore. It's about you thinking that you can mold me into an accessory for your rubbish." The masses on their feet, some chanting Harrison, others shouting, the studio buzzing with their energy. Jimmy's wrath erupts. He leans forward, his voice corrosive, abandoning the host's urbane civility. "Harrison, we brought you here to talk," he states, nodding towards the desk. "Have some respect for that. That's a mistake." Ford's eyes blaze, and he leans in, his voice low, slicing. "Respect's earned," he states, "not by making a farce out of what I do." The crowd is roaring. The din, deafening, some filming, others yelling. The director calls the break. Finally, the monitors flashing ads. But Ford's still in his seat, his glare unshakable. Jimmy stands talking to the floor producer, his movements wild. The house lights dazzle the band. Silent and security closing in, but Ellen's already getting moving, ready to back forward. The crowd is agitated, sensing the struggle over authenticity, far from resolved, and the stage set for an explosion. The Jimmy Kimmel live set is a restless hive. The commercial break doing little to cool the crowd's passions as they mutter. Some chanting Harrison Ford's name, others debating in the stands. The monitors buzz with ads, but the cameras live recording every second for the broadcast. Ford unyielding his stance, unflinching eyes fixed on the desk where Jimmy Kimmel had been. His anger at talk show is sensationalism and seething rage. Jimmy's offstage, his voice sharp as he exchanges barbs with the floor producer, gesticulating wildly. Ellen's in the wings, her glare trained on the security team. Two burly men in suits, now inches from the stage, tightly wound but wary. The director's voice cuts through headsets. "Bring Jimmy back, but keep it quiet." The break cuts the lights, snapping up the band, stumbling into a frantic riff. Jimmy returns his smile, tight-seated, with a forced calm that hides no strain. "We're back with Harrison Ford," he says, his voice straining warmth, but the crowd's applause is spotty. The room still raw from Ford's stand on authenticity. Jimmy tries to pivot, asking about the film's themes of resistance, hoping to ground things in Ford's affection for honest telling stories. Ford answers to his voice, gruff, steady speaking, of the pilot's fight against corporate lies. But then he alters his tone, cutting. "That's what this ought to be about," he says, pointing to the set. "Not your hype to get around what's real." The crowd stirs, some clapping, others shifting the split. Clear Jimmy's fingers close a pen, his smile disappearing. "We're just giving people a fun escape," he says, reclining, appealing to audience. "That's the deal, right?" Some cheer, but boos overwhelm them. The room leaning toward Ford's conviction. Escape, Ford's voice low, biting. "You're burying truth under your sensationalist garbage." The audience erupts, some standing, clapping, others shouting for Jimmy to push back. Ellen, watching, mutters, "He's got him." The security guards creep closer, their presence weighty, but they're still holding back Jimmy's control phrase, his voice rising. "Harrison, you're a guest here," he says, pointing at the desk. "We're showing you respect, maybe give some back." The crowd feels the challenge, their noise spiking. Ford's eyes narrow, his jaw set. "Respect," he says, his voice steady, fierce. "You don't earn it by turning my work into a cheap stunt." The words land like a punch, and the audience erupts, some chanting. Harrison, others booing the studio. Trembling, Jimmy's face flushes his hands. Clenching the desk, he tries to laugh, but it's empty. "This is a talk show, Harrison, not a soapbox," he says, his tone biting. "You want to preach, find another stage? That's it, the provocation." Ford leans in, his voice gruff, unyielding. "I came to talk about something real," he says, nodding to the audience. "You made it a circus, I don't play for your hype." The audience erupts. Some standing, filming, others yelling the set, shaking with their energy. Jimmy stands, breaking the host's rule, his voice rising. "You know what, Harrison, if you don't like it, you don't have to stay. It's raw." A slap in the face and the audience loses it. The noise deafening Ellen, edging nearer to the stage, her eyes on Ford, poised to intervene. The floor producer signals to security, whispering, "Get ready." The guards close in their steps. Heavy, Ford does not stand, but his presence dominates the space. His eyes fixed on Jimmy, his frustration a living thing. "Maybe I won't," he says. His voice firm, cutting. The crowd erupts, some cheering his defiance, others jeering. The room a war zone. Jimmy's had enough, his face red, finger pointed at Ford. "Then leave," he says, his voice angry, final. The audience gasps, the noise reaching a crescendo, some on their feet. Recording the directors yelling to cut, but the cameras keep rolling. The moment too big to stop. Ford's refusing his gaze, refusing to back down, and the stage is seconds away from chaos. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio is a whirlwind. Jimmy Kimmel's biting command, then continue causing a storm of applause, boos, and shouts of Harrison Ford's name. Ford in his seat still responds to Jimmy's glare with a stare that would shatter stone. His anger at talk show sensationalism, a burning power. The crowd on its feet, some shouting for Ford, others cheering Jimmy to hold his ground, phones aloft, streaming the chaos live. The cameras, in defiance of the director's desperate instructions, keep rolling, giving the conflict to millions. Backstage, Ellen has her eyes on darting between Ford and the security team. Now emerges from stage, hands waiting in reserve, but not moving. The floor producer's voice is frantic, telling Jimmy to withdraw. But the host's well beyond Jimmy, his face flushed, points at Ford again, his voice tense. "We gave you a platform to present your movie," he says, gesturing toward the crowd. "You don't get to destroy it." The crowd reacts, some cheering Jimmy, others booing, the noise a tidal wave. Ford stands slow, deliberate, his presence commanding. The room, his fight for authentic storytelling. "Unyielding, wreck it," he says, his voice gruff, searing. "You turned it into a circus. I'm done with your hype." The crowd erupts, some standing, clapping, others yelling. The set, shaking. With their energy, Ellen nods from the wings, her expression tight, proud, knowing Ford's drawn his line. The security guards move in, one stepping forward, his voice firm but wary. "Sir, time to go," he says, aware of Ford's mythical aura. Ford eyes, his glare halting the guard, not combative but resolute. "I'm walking," he says, his voice unyielding. Ellen takes a step, her voice brusque. He exits on his own terms. She snaps at the floor producer, who's overmatched. Ford looks at Jimmy, then the audience, his face firm. "I said what I had to," he says, the room, his voice unflinching, fierce. Then without a second glance, he strides off stage, his footsteps measured, intent. The crowd exploding in cheers, shouts, and gasps. Jimmy's left standing the band, fumbling into an unsteady riff to fill the gap. He flashes a strained smile, waving. "Well, that was something, folks," he stammers unsteadily, trying to spin it. The audience laughs, but it's fractured, the energy shattered. Backstage, producers are in a state of panic. The director raging about salvaging the show, while Ellen follows Ford to the green room, where he goes to retrieve his jacket, unabashed. "Told him no stunts," she bemoans. Ford just grumbles, his mind elsewhere. Beyond, the internet's on fire, clips of the confrontation, making the round, fans and critics camping out. The show lurches to completion. Jimmy scrambling to get in the last things down, his stock charm hollowed by Ford's decision. The tale of Ford's departure casts all else in shadow. A moment etched into talk show lore. The night a legend walked in, fought for authentic telling, and left on his own terms. As Ford enters the LA night madness of the studio, fading in the back. He's not only going, he's rewritten the fight, leaving a mark that nobody will ever forget. That's the story, folks. What a fight. If you're hooked on these raw Hollywood fights, click that subscribe button to catch more. We're building a crew that loves the real deal. Drop a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. Perhaps Chicago, Tokyo, or some off the grid. Small town, what do you think was Ford? Right to walk? Or did he go too far? Like the video, share it with your friends, and let's keep this conversation alive. Stay real, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next one.